and welcome you all. Civil Services Aspirants, and in this session I have chosen to discuss how to read newspapers. समाचार पत्र को कैसे पढ़ें सिविल सर्विसेज के जो एस्पिरेंट्स हैं. Right? How many hours to give to read out the newspapers? कितना समय दिया जाए? Whether to read the complete newspaper or to be very careful to read out the newspapers. क्या पूरा पढ़ा जाए या महत्वपूर्ण पॉइंट को पढ़ा जाए? Let me throw light on the purpose of newspapers are being circulated across the globe or India. If we come to India, there are more than 130 crores population, 130 करोड़ से भी अधिक आबादी हिंदुस्तान की है. And newspapers are meant to cover more and more readers. और यदि हम सिविल सर्विस एस्पिरेंट्स की संख्या देखें तो यूपीएससी में 10 to 15 lakhs aspirants are in the track of their preparation. And the same way, if we include all the aspirants over the different services, including Reserve Bank of India, Gate B officers, state civil services, other sectors, aspirants will form a small part as compared to the big population, maximum 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs, 70 lakhs. वैसे में जो न्यूज़ पेपर्स होते हैं वो आपके लिए कैसे इम्पॉर्टेंट हो, ये बहुत ज़रूरी होता है. फर्स्ट पॉइंट टू डिस्कस वेदर टू रीड द न्यूज़पेपर कंप्लीट. क्या पूरा न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ना चाहिए? नो. To read the newspaper completely is irrelevant. It is a waste of time, a waste of concentration, and it's entirely wrong track to make best use of newspapers. In newspapers, there are hardly 5 to 6 stories every day in a newspaper that are important from civil services point of view. दूसरी बात ये कि the newspapers do have the access of coverage of activities of the political parties, games, sports, local news that are not so relevant for you. Indeed, news column covering the development in science and technology, defense sector, agriculture, schemes, national and international issues, economic news, geographical phenomenon, and such kind of news that are important. And if you know the previous year questions, if you have already read the previous year questions and the syllabus, wide coverage of syllabus, both of PT and Mains, things are crystal clear. What to take from the newspapers every day. Ensure to give more time, say hours, over newspapers would be sheer waste of time. Newspapers are, however, very important because UPSC has changed its perspective from a static to dynamic trend. And the editorial section of the newspaper is very important. Again, there is another point which newspaper to be the better one. Here has been the trends amongst the UPSC aspirants, civil service aspirants to keep up with the Hindu, the Indian Express, for economic news, Economic Times or the Mint. So these are the points to be cared while you study newspapers, and you should derive the best from newspapers as regards the success in civil services exam. Should we have the things at a glance? How to read newspapers? Should civil services exam read the complete newspapers? Already discussed. Definitely not. What are the important points to keep up with newspaper reading? Already narrated. News from science and technology, economic development, poverty, disaster management, defense sector, news of national and international conferences, or the policy changes across the globe. The way and the hours you spend in reading newspapers is very significant. You must not spare more than 90 minutes to cover a newspaper, because hardly will get 5 to 6 points that are significant from UPSC or states civil services aspirants. Reading the complete newspaper, no, irrelevant. From the civil services exam point of view, there are usually 5 and 6 significant stories that are per day relevant in the newspaper. Full coverage of newspaper reading and the reading in the increased frequency are irrelevant. Don't read out the newspapers completely, and it should not increase the frequency of reading newspapers. Newspaper, it gives you काइनेटिक अप्रोच, ये गति देता है, आपको अपडेट रखता है विथ डे टू डे current national and international news. The UPSC has changed its focus from a static to kinetic approach with a special emphasis on current affairs. In both preliminary and mains, there are direct questions from media, right? Newspaper plays a very significant role in GS2 and GS3 papers. General Studies paper 2 and paper 3. At times, there has been instances to get the question directly from newspapers in GS2 and GS3. Read newspapers carefully. News related to crime, function of political parties are irrelevant for civil services exam. What are the relevant and significant points? News related to environment, government schemes, economy, international relations, science and technology. These are the sections of much importance. Now come to the editorial. Editorial of newspaper helps it to build the perspectives and opinions on current affairs and is mandatory for civil services aspirants. Thanks for the day.